Welcome to another episode of Market Overdrive. I am your co-host, Karla Mina, and with me today, wow, is it really you? Can I touch you? Are you real?
After 90 days of the longest contract negotiation in history, Karla Mina finally decided to pay me absolutely nothing once again, and I am here.
Welcome back, sir. How
Thank
was
you.
Vegas?
It was good. Las Vegas. Well, it wasn't the same Vegas we're used to, but it was Las Vegas.
I'm
at the
so
end of the
sorry to
day.
hear that it wasn't the same.
Yeah,
Vegas.
conventions are never really like that fun. So we got that out of the way. We're done. I'm ready to go back to work.
And here we are back at work.
I was in
Welcome
Miami
back.
before Las Vegas, though.
Yeah, we don't care about that.
Okay, well, moving on.
Let's go on. This is not, like, serious. I was just faking it. I'm not really excited.
Cool.
She doesn't really care.
She really. Whoa, hey, we haven't even
introduced
There's
her
a
yet.
rule here.
Sorry.
There's a rule here. You can't even speak until we introduce you. You just violated
I have
rule
to
number
raise
one.
my hand?
All right, let's get into it. Let's just
do it.
introduce the person that stepped out of line.
Wait, before we go there, though, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. It's a full house, but we're talking about how to get you to stay in Chicago and not to relocate to the suburbs because we're hearing a flight. There should be no such thing. But before we start that, let's introduce our guest.
In from Compass today, our guest is Deborah Hess. Can I say that all fancy, like a fancy clothing designer?
Please.
Deborah Hess.
Hi, Nick.
All right. How are you today?
Good. You?
Good. I'm great, especially now
Love
that you're
you.
here.
You're awesome.
So what we like to do is typically let our guests give us a little background and tell us something about yourself and your history and your, I guess, throw your resume out there. Let's hear
Sure.
Let's hear who you are, Deborah.
Well, I've been in Chicago real estate for 27 years.
Oh,
Oh, started when I was 12. And,
oh.
and I came to real estate from the human resources field. So I think a lot of those skills, coaching, counseling, all that hand-holding has really been helpful. And had my own firm for about 15 years, New Chicago Real Estate. Then I joined Conlin when they opened up in 2009, and we were just acquired in May by Compass.
Oh, cool.
So it's been an exciting transition.
Now, which office are you at?
So
Because
you're
there's quite a,
Roscoe
there's
Village
there's more
then.
than one office,
Yeah,
obviously. so
I'm in
you-
Roscoe
Roscoe
Village.
Roscoe Village. Okay, cool.
A lot of great tools, learning, spending time learning all of the technology, and all you will soon see all this stuff that is available to help us better serve our clients.
Can you guys make one of those fancy glowy signs for my bedroom?
Sure.
I just want to have one in my
for
room.
sale
Just,
sign?
like, sometimes I get afraid of the dark and like, turn the for sale sign
illuminated
on.
for sale sign. Yes.
an ass.
Debbie, can you expand on that, please, so that our audience can know what you are talking about?
Yeah,
What is
so-
Nick referring to about these amazing tools that Compass
I like the sign.
brokerage has to offer?
So the sign is one of the unique features that we've introduced in Chicago. It is an illuminated sign, and when the people drive by the listing, if they've got the Compass app, then it will ping them, and they can get all the information without even asking.
So now today's topic is city versus suburbs. Do you focus mostly in the city,
I
or
do.
you have a little bit of reach out into the suburbs, or is the cities like really where your career is? Okay.
Pretty
So
much
This is going to
city.
be a good little
if,
war.
If I know we're talking about
All
the
right.
flight, and there is some of that, right? But
Right.
we try to do a little bit more digging on the good schools in the city, and offering that, educating our clients
Okay.
about the options. But when they resist, we'll go where they want to go.
Should we bother
Well,
introducing the other person
education
in the
goes
room?
a long way, but obviously you work in a team with one of our lenders. So can you tell us a little bit more
Well,
about
hold on,
your
you guys
guest
guys
here?
went way off script here. All right.
We have a
No,
script.
What happened to the
First of all,
nostalgia?
We are not a scripted show.
So let me kind of back it up a little bit. Why Deb is
Well,
here
why don't
today?
we introduce you first?
Yeah, everybody
you?
knows who I am. Hey, everybody.
Oh.
This is Graco.
The fan club. Everybody knows
Are the
who
lights
he is.
going up?
That
Are
was
they
great.
going up right now?
Yeah, it's blowing up, Grok.
So no, the reason why Deb is here today is it's kind of a historical moment. Deb and I did our first real estate transaction literally probably 26 something years ago now. And the reason behind that was she was the agent that helped my parents buy their first property. And it was a multi-unit in the Smith Park area. When I got into the industry, I've always tried to stay in contact with her, and I've always tried to follow her. She's done really well. And now that she's at Compass, I wanted to showcase that. But I wanted to have her on air with us because she's been around through so many cycles of our real estate market. And more importantly, you were the first realtor that I've ever worked with.
And I
We
inspired,
put,
and I
we put that deal
inspired
together.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Ever?
I mean, I think I was like maybe 13, 14 around the time, but I would delegate a lot of that stuff when the calls would come in where my parents were in the process of the mortgage process, and I thought that was very cool.
Oh, so you're like the little foreign kid that could read English.
Yeah.
So you're like,
kind of like in your
they're
household.
right. They're like, mijo, read this.
Mijo.
And you're like, it says it's a lot of
Fixed.
interest.
But we didn't need him because I'm bilingual.
Oh, whoa. See, what you forgot that one.
She's got a
Debbie.
little Argentina on her, bro.
From
So
Argentina.
Nicolas is watching, our producer, and he's from Argentina, and you got a chance to chat with him a little bit. But more than anything, that's the reason why I wanted to kind of bring her on air with us to talk a little bit about that transaction, how my parents were able to become homeowners as first-time buyers.
It was amazing, and they were lovely, and that is kind of how I got started in the business, was working a lot in Smith Park, Ukrainian Village, Humboldt Park, cold calling, knocking doors in Spanish.
I literally opened up the phone books, and that's how I called you. That's how I was able to reach out to your office.
Okay.
And it's crazy how you're here
It was
today. So
amazing.
I love the story. So, Debbie, let's take it back to a little bit more about what our audience can learn from this segment. But so, can you tell us a little bit about the markets? Graco says that he met you a long time ago, and so obviously you've seen this market go up and down. So, what are your expectations, or what do you see or foresee in the Chicago market this year?
It's starting off with a bang, and so I think the interest rates going down again. You were just telling me about that, and I think that that's going to continue to inspire people to jump in. There's been a lot of sort of ambivalence in the market, and I think that's calming down. We've been selling properties with multiple offers in record time, so it seems that there is a lot of demand, and people are kind of spreading their wings and jumping in again. I think that the market is going to be more normalized. You know, market times 30 to 60 days. We're not going to see, the same kind of spike that we did last year. I think
Like
it's
5 days of the market, 10 days
Yeah,
of the market.
I mean, there's some of that depending on the area and the product. There definitely you can
Price.
see that price.
Everything sells
Everything
fast. 'cause
sells at
price
the
really
right
good.
price,
Right.
exactly. So I think that, but I sense that in the marketplace, people are feeling the courage of jumping back in.
And when you speak to someone that's looking to put their property on the market now, obviously as a 10-year realtor who understands the cyclical market, what are you advising sellers, or what is your main focus or main advice that you'd like to give somebody who's about to put their property on the market?
Be very conscious of the price. That is definitely, the typical process to do a market analysis is to look 6 to 12 months back. And I'm actually seeing even appraisers looking now at properties that are pending, that are contingent, and trying to learn what the price was that those sold for, and really kind of discounting 6 to 12 months back. So if the average is 350 from 12 months ago, let's talk about trying to get in under that average.
Right, and
So-
it's a shifting market, right? So you want to look at not just what is happening now in the spring market, but what happened in fourth quarter and more so last year's first quarter, just because we were anticipating this correction per se or adjustment. But I don't think. What do you have to say about the word correction or adjustment in the marketplace?
Oh, I think it's definitely taken place. I think that last year this time, property was selling very quickly and prices were appreciating pretty rapidly. And then we saw a cooling over the summer, early fall. I think that that's continued. And I believe that we are now seeing properties that are selling quicker again, and because people are sensitive to the price. And when people price correctly, things sell.
Completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing the
Sure.
information with us and sharing of your time. I know you're very busy, so thank you for coming out and
Thank
sharing
you.
your story of how you met Graco.
Yes.
thank you so much
Thanks
for coming on.
having
Appreciate
me.
it.
It was a pleasure.
Pleasure to have you here. If we wanted to get a hold of you, where can we reach you?
Best place is my cell,
Yes?
773-865-3327.
Again, what is that again? I'm going to write it down just in case I want to call you.
773-865-3327.
There you go.
Got it. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks so
Pleasure
much.
to have you here.
Likewise.
See, I saw you making faces, though. What does that mean? Like,
I thought
you
we
don't
had
believe in
a
the
few more-
whole, you don't
Oh,
believe in
corrections.
the correction or adjustment thing?
I mean, I think when we talk about last year, how there was a little slowdown in the middle of summer, I guess that was also when rates spiked up. I think people want to take a pause for a second because there was a little panic. Rates took a really big jump in the middle of summer last summer.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's necessarily because people were losing confidence in the real estate market or just kind of like a wait and see real quick. Sometimes when something drastically hits like that, people pause. But because if there was going to be a slowdown, the slowdown would have continued, and then it picked right back up, towards the back end of the summer, going into the fall, last year.
But do you agree now that there's a lot of activity going on, but there's still that pricing is key and properties need to be priced correctly? And I love
pricing's
asking
always
a
been
lender
key though,
a
because
question about real estate.
because pricing's always been key though, because I was buying properties in 2009 and 2010, which was the absolute worst time to technically, generally speaking, buy a property, right? And I think that there's a good deal in every market. So if the price is right, it's going to sell in any market, whether you have a slow market or a booming market. If the price is right, those usually get everyone's attention. Rest assured, even when there was a real estate crash back in 2008, there was still people scouring the MLS looking for a great deal. Even back then.
Well, see, I love how you take advantage of low markets so that you can buy properties and hold on to investment properties. So we're talking about the general market or general audience who's going to be buying properties or selling properties.
If I'm speaking as a homeowner looking to buy a place, my first place, or just any place for me to move my family, I have a different mindset from being an investor. As a homeowner, I think that rates going up a half a point or a quarter point or, trying to time the perfect time to buy, that's dangerous. I think you're really pinching pennies but losing focus of the real bucks to do all of that. I think right now you should just, if you want to move into something, you feel confident about it, you might want to do it sooner than later because rates will go up. Prices might go up eventually. Real estate will be higher priced 10 years from now.
Well,
Period.
since I'm asking you all the real estate questions versus you asking me all the real estate questions,
Right.
because we're changing role repertoires here,
Right.
why don't I just go ahead and ask lender questions to our other loan officer in the studio. Hi, Joel. How are you?
Okay, I like the energy that's back here, right? This whole episode is about keeping people in
return of the Mac?
Chicago. Yeah, can we keep Nick in Chicago? That could be one of the themes of the episode today.
Negotiated my contract, man.
$330 million for 13 years.
I am not Bryce Harper.
Okay. Well, no, it's good to see this energy again, and I like the theme for today. We're all about giving back on the show, and one of the things that we're going to do here today is speak to a husband and wife team, and that's why I'm so excited that we have a new perspective. So let's jump right into it.
Let's introduce your guest before we get started. Now we're really going to get into that whole Chicago versus suburbs conversation, huh?
Absolutely.
You got to introduce him, Joe.
Yeah.
To my left, I have a great couple from At Properties. I have Ben and Juliana Yeager. Introduce yourself, please.
Benjamin Yeager at Properties.
Hi, Juliana Yeager at Properties.
Do you have anything to say about At Properties, Nick?
No, great company.
You're not going to talk like you're making fun of
It's a great
all of
company.
a
It's
sudden.
been around forever. I mean, well, not forever. 2001, 2000?
Yes.
Right, yeah. Exploded in the early 2000s and got even larger post 2010. I mean, it's a great company.
See, that's why I love him, because he knows all the history.
I mean, it's my
You've
job to
been
know
sitting there doing a
everybody's
lot about
history.
research about real estate offices, Nick.
That's good.
So,
They have
Welcome to our
we have
show.
the number one
Thank you
market
so
share,
much for
so
having us.
it's
So
good.
can you tell us a little bit about your business and where do you service your clients? What area?
Yes. So I've been in business for 15 years, and Benjamin came on board with me 10 years ago. So we've been working together for a long time, and we predominantly service our clients in the city, most likely on the north side. Our niche, if you will, are growing families. So our number one question is, do we stay or do we go? City or suburbs? And this is what we're answering from our clients all the time, every day. That's what we're talking about.
And we currently reside in Lakeview right now. We send our kids to a CPS school, Hamilton, which is great.
I love Hamilton.
Yes,
Yeah.
we actually we moved a complete 2 blocks from our place that we stayed 10 years to the last.
it must have been
5.
rough. Must have been
And
rough.
Hamilton.
Wait,
was
what
gonna
was the
actually
boarding
close.
school?
What's that?
What was the boarding school?
What do you mean?
We stayed in Hamilton to Hamilton.
Yeah.
We didn't,
Okay,
we
so
didn't
was
move out
it-
of
yeah, I was
district.
like, was there really a school boundary difference there as to why you moved?
Well, not really, but they actually almost closed Hamilton.
Oh, wow.
And when we first moved into the neighborhood and then it slowly progressed, the principal at the time was amazing and really kind of brought it up to that stature. And that's what we want to kind of talk about to all of our clients, because we feel like they need to know, it's school district specific in the city, and we can offer a lot, especially sending our kids. And we also send our kids to like preschool at the Catholic school. So we have a lot of information.
Yeah, both public and private. And I think the number one thing people do when they get pregnant is they get scared. They go, what do we do now, and how do we navigate this?
I always do that.
Yeah,
Every time I get pregnant, I get
Yeah.
scared.
every time. It's true.
So are we doing like a tug of war here between the city and the
it.
suburbs?
Yes.
All right, because I'm going to be like the bipolar arguer here. I have a place in both.
Great at the bipolar thing.
I live literally around the corner,
He does have two places.
and
the
I
city place-
also live in Oak Brook, so it's like this will be
Okay.
fun for me. So who
But
wants
you-
to
but
start?
you're
Which
not the
side do
family
I?
guy.
I want to take the opposite side of everybody else.
Well, you take the side of the
The
single,
suburb.
like non-child have, like you don't have family, so it's cool
Okay,
for you to
that's
have two
not-
places.
Don't rub it in.
Maybe don't have
Sorry,
kids.
Nick, I love you.
That was so nice.
But you're talking about families staying in Chicago,
Right.
even about okay. So let's go back. The reason why people like to move or prefer to move is because our property taxes are high, especially in those areas that you mentioned, anywhere between Lakeview, Lincoln Park. If you're talking about some of the really good schools, were Nettlehurst, Blaine, Audubon, Burley,
Boone.
Bell. So these are
Only.
particularly
Hamilton.
in very high property tax areas, right? And so people decide to move to the burbs because they're like, well, we don't want to pay that much in property taxes. And then there's a whole issue with CPS, Chicago Public Schools, and our teachers and the budgets. So then they're like, okay, we're going to have to go fix the school, make the school, and fundraise for the school. In some cases, 60,000, 100,000. So why do that? Why not move to the burbs when you don't have to do all that? So what do you say to people who are in that predicament?
Well, to go on your tax point, so Cook County is enormous. And I think what a lot of people forget is the taxes are relatively the same. However, you get more land when you go to the suburbs. So that's kind of the big differentiator. You might be paying the equal taxes, but you get a little bit more land. And I think people forget when they go out, you've got to really go to get a newer house, maybe that doesn't need as much updating or something like that. Sometimes it's affordability and taxes. But when they really start looking, because I think the number one draw to stay is commute. A lot of both parents are working now, and they don't want to have long commutes. So they want to go into neighboring suburbs, maybe Oak Park or Wilmette or Winnetka, that's not as far of a drive or a train commute. But then when they get there, they realize they're going to have to do a total fixer-upper, have same high taxes, but you get maybe a double yard or something like that.
Well, when we talk about Winnetka
Well,
and
can
those
I rewind
particular...
and go to the school thing though?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Like you keep saying it as if, and I'm impartial to either or, but you keep saying as if there's only good schools in Chicago.
No, no,
Like
that's
the
not
schools
true.
in
say that.
Chicago.
I
so
think
the
no,
schools
and
in
actually
Chicago,
that's what I
I'm
was
like,
gonna
there's
say,
some of
'cause
the
It's
some
a
amazing public schools
misperception.
in like you're talking like
they're
Hinsdale
amazing.
Central and the Glenbards and Alliance Township. These are
Absolutely.
like top 15
So
public schools
can
in
I
the
say
state.
something? I was actually going to say to your point about Winnetka, right? When you're in those schools, once you're in those areas, you're looking at private schools. Like
Yeah,
no one's going public school in those areas. But to your point, that's exactly
some
what people are
amazing
looking
suburb
at. I mean, if you're
high
looking,
schools that are
Yeah,
public.
there's
I mean,
still
yeah.
amazing
But I also
elementary
think
and high
that,
school.
Like, I come from a very small town, and the first thing I do is always kind of, when I was coming into the city, looking up the school rankings, trying to familiarize myself with that. And I realized that even coming from a small town, we were not ranked that well. But then when I started looking at the rankings within the Chicago area, especially with Hamilton and the surrounding schools, I mean, we have great schools down here. And I think that, our business, we do a lot of families and people coming into the area and who just want to have questions regarding that school or parks. Because if you go out to the suburbs, you don't see people out at the parks that often. But I have 3 neighboring parks within my area where my land may be just a little 10 by 10
25 by
square.
25.
That's
But-
why you're at the park though, bud.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I'm meeting
But that's
people
what
and
we're
saying
out
hello.
having
don't-
commu-
in the
a
suburbs-
sense of
In
community.
the suburb, everyone has a park
But
in
why do
their
you live
backyard.
in the city then? If you keep advocating for I mean, I'm not biased at all. But
Yeah.
I think for me I hear the school argument to some degree, but I think that people oftentimes see 2 children at a certain age and they want to give them space.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big driver. Like maybe they're not going to get an acre of land, but at least somewhere where they could put a swing set and like have their own private backyard and they can run around. And that's the most common thing I hear. I mean, let's just assume that we're talking about you can afford to be in a good school district in the city, and you can afford to be in a good school district in the public school systems in the suburbs. Then it turns into, well, why do you want to move out?
Well, I think,
Then that's the one that kind of keeps coming up.
and I mean, I think there again too, like when you go out to the suburbs, it's not cheap to get a single family home. I think everybody just thinks they're going to get this huge yard, and you can if you go far west or far north. You're not going up to even Evanston and getting a nicer house that has central air, or whether or not you go to Hinsdale. I mean, Hinsdale, you have to have $1 million. And granted,
At least, yeah.
yeah.
Well, let
and-
me. What about you, Joel? Where do you live? What do you advocate for?
We're right down the street from each other, so we're in Lakeview.
Oh, yeah, that's
We're-
right. You just moved back, right?
Yeah, Wolf of Grace Street. Find me online at Wolf of Grace Street.
No, you did not. No, you did not. Oh, come on, bro.
I haven't
love
done it
it.
yet.
I
haven't
love
done
it.
yet.
That's great.
But we talked about this last week. We were
did.
talking, and I kind of called out Oak Park, and I was talking about this. And the taxes aren't cheaper. Everyone discusses Chicago as being such a tax-heavy place.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at a lot of the properties that are in the surrounding suburbs, they are not cheaper. They truly aren't.
Yeah, Oak Park's still Cook County, though.
Oh yeah, you're
your
seeing
problem.
this. Yeah, you're getting all of the taxes of the city, and it's considerably higher. Okay, so there's some places that here in the city I think do provide a value for families, and that's why I like this back and forth.
Yeah.
I like knowing that you can actually live in the city, find a place for your kids, and not have a crazy tax bill.
Right. And I think that a lot of people, it's the schools that they hear all this negative media on CPS. But if you think about it, negative media gets more clicks, gets more likes, gets more attention, but they don't often share the good things that are happening at the
CPS is
school.
very big, though, and I think the negative media comes from certain areas that are still developing.
Right.
And, you know, there's in every metropolitan, there's different levels of quality of life. You know, things are pricier when you go over here. Things are cheaper
Right.
when you go over here. The schools might be suffering with less tax contribution in that area, in certain areas, and nicer neighborhoods are going to have better schools because they got more contribution.
Yeah, I think we're going to all advocate to these specific areas that we specialize in, right? So as
Yeah.
professionals, we do have a niche wherever we specialize in. But to your point, Juliana, I love the fact that you talked about lifestyle, right? It depends on what people like. Like you said, you're okay with going to the park. There's pet parks around here. There's so many activities for the children to go to. I mean, if you're a new family, what are some of the amenities that the city offers that you really enjoy about Chicago?
I think Shield Park. I mean, now and again,
The
too,
park
Park
districts.
District. Shield Park is the one that we've sent our kids to, whether it be pre-K schools, fun in the wintertime area. when
It's just
able
a
to
lot
get-
of activities that are really underutilized that people, our clients, don't even know. So there's park district classes that you can sign your kids up for that are really reasonable. Meet other parents, people like yourselves, get together, have a sense of community with that. But also one thing I really like being in the city is that on the drop of a hat, we can go to a concert at Park West. I
Sure.
took my daughter to see Grace Vanderwall on a whim. It was her first concert. So you can literally drive
to the
20
Bulls
minutes,
game in 10
hop in
minutes
an
and,
Uber, go down to United Center, concerts, things like that that are really out your door. So that's really nice. But it's the same thing. It's going back to what people's needs are. And I mean, I see it, a lot of it's commute based.
Right.
But I'm going to go to suburb advocating again.
Yeah.
But you're in the West Loop. Talk about
My
that.
apartment is right around the corner here in
Oh, I'm
Streeterville.
sorry, Streeterville.
Streeterville.
Streeterville. Where are you?
Streeterville. My suburb house is in Oakbrook.
Okay.
All right. So the one thing though, outside of if you're going dollar for dollar, like let's say $700,000 home versus $700,000 home, you could obviously get more square footage in the suburbs, regardless of where it is, for the most part. But those assessment fees, if you're getting a $700,000 condo in a decent part of town in Chicago, most of Chicago living is condo living, right? And most of suburban living is not condo living.
Right.
And so, in fact, condos are like they're next to free in the suburbs. They're never over $200,000 and things like it. So, when you do the math on a $700,000 property in the city, we can argue taxes depending on what suburb we're going to. DuPage County or Cook County, big difference here.
Right.
So I like Oakbrook. But that $1,000 assessment fee is another $200,000 on mortgage
Right.
in the suburbs.
But I think that's a different
huge
buyer who's buying into a $700,000 city condo downtown. That's probably somebody that maybe kids are farther on the horizon or they're not necessarily thinking about the city schools.
Because they have great townhouses, 2,000, 2,400 square feet, and those assessments in those usually they're fee simple. I mean, 89 to maybe 225.
Now, that's doable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and duplex downs, duplex ups. These are really popular choices that are $200 assessments, but you can get a 4-bedroom, 2,500 square feet
See what happens when
condo,
you speak
new
from a single guy's
construction.
perspective?
Yeah.
I would be in a condo.
Let's not keep you in a condo. Let's get you in a house.
I have a house.
What are you seeing as far as the loans that you're underwriting, Joel? Are you seeing a lot of people buying mostly condos then in the city versus single families?
Well, we have seen a lot of the cranes that are up in the air right now. And what are the things that are being built the most? It's mostly apartments. We are finally getting back in and seeing these condo developments. We had a guest in here before that we did a large condo unit over at 9 Walton. So you're seeing those higher end condos coming on board. And the people that want to live in the city are really okay with those assessments. They're okay with finding a place that isn't going to be a 15, 20-year property. They might be doing it for 5 or 10 years. So there's pros and cons to the single family versus condo lifestyle. And in the city of Chicago, we're seeing so much condo.
And that's another question, though. Like, if you're looking at the more transient type of product, like a condo, right? I think that for the most part, if you're not buying a 1,600 square foot condo or larger, then you're looking to stay there for a short period of time unless your familial status changes and you become married and you have children or what have you. So the condo is always like the entry point. What do you advise our audience as far as buying a condo? Like, what is the exit strategy if you are supposed to, if you have to stay with the condo because of finances or lifestyle?
I always say make sure that in 5 years you can still be comfortable. And if you're expecting a little one, or you don't want a little one, is it going to be enough square footage so that you move in and you don't instantly feel like you have to purge your stuff? And we think that right now, because there are so many rentals going on, it's going to be more multi-units where families are going to say, hey, I'm going to live on the top floor, but I'm going to rent out the first floor. And we think that's going to be the new wave because people are still going to have that investment aspect, but at the same time, in the future, if they want to, they can convert it to single-family home.
And you are seeing that multi-unit trend carry on with families as well versus just single individuals?
It's a great opportunity for people that are renting right now that think maybe they can't afford the city, but they don't want to leave it. You can buy it, and Joel can attest to this, for as little as 3.5% down in a multi-unit if it's your primary residence. So you live in, make one an owner's unit, and lease out the rest and let them help you pay your mortgage. It's building wealth and instant equity. It's a really great
I like
option.
that idea, right? Because that's a great point. So say you're looking into, I don't know, a $600,000 home, right, in North Center. Or let's put you in maybe north of North Center, and now you are in the Audubon School District, so just further north, $600,000 single family, okay, entry point. You got your brick, gray stone, whatever. But
that thing.
instead of buying that gray stone, can you buy a 2-flat for the same budget? Maybe go up $700. What is the price? What is the monthly carrying cost difference with something like that? 600 versus 700, 600 single family versus 700,000 2-flat.
I'll speak to the mortgage side of this because a lot of times people are coming through and they're approved, Nick knows this, at a certain dollar amount for a condo. And they think, how could I ever go buy a $600,000 or $700,000 place? You're allowed to use the rental income from the other units. So I've taken people that literally are just school teachers on a modest income. We're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. They might make 60 or 70 grand, and when they're buying a condo, they're maxed out at about 250,000. They can easily get into the $500,000 and $600,000 range because of the income on the other units. It opens up the doors for home ownership, and people like it as an investment.
Just remember, you get 75% of that income. You don't get dollar for dollar. So if you're shopping, don't look at the $1,500 rent and assume you get all $1,500 as credit. You get, what is it, $1,200 as the credit? So it works.
But
He's
it's
right.
great. These properties are easily rentable. Paint. You don't have to be fixing them up a ton. Fix up your unit they're going to live in, and then they can lease out. Rent is going up so much that you can get a great renter in there for a good amount.
Well, I love that you say that, Juliana, because we're speaking to the affordability of these neighborhoods, right? In some cases, when you're talking and when you're shopping for school boundaries per se, it is really hard and heartbreaking because a lot of people can't afford those nicer schools, right? So in the past, people used to buy condos, like 1-bedroom condo, just so they can send their kids to that specific school. And it's ridiculous because at some point they're like, okay, I don't need this condo, or I need to move because the school wasn't really what I thought it would be, and my child doesn't really excel in this environment because every school has a different style. But I love the aspect of adding the whole multi-unit investment to the affordability aspect of it, so people can really see how they can compare with, and then the $600,000 and $700,000 budget may seem overwhelming for some families, but I love the fact that you take into consideration the rental income and it makes it more affordable.
And we have guests on today that literally know this stuff in and out. And this is the reason why having people that have the experience and the years of doing it can show you multiple types of properties and not just a condo agent or just a single family agent. This is a dynamic duo over here. We're happy to have you guys on
Thank
board.
you.
And we just finished up a 4-year renovation of our own home. So.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So
4 years.
Well, because sometimes
That's
you
a lot
can't
of
do it
fighting
all.
over
You
tile
can't do
and
it all
paint,
at
man.
once. If you can make it through a renovation, you can make it through
Whoa.
anything,
4
as they
years.
We
say.
did
Wait,
incidental.
they
A
work
lot of
together
fighting.
and they're renovating a house together. You have kids too?
Three.
Yes, we have
kids.
3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
We're going
Yeah.
to have another segment with you.
Yeah.
We could go
How
on
to
and on.
stay together.
Well, thank you for being
Through it
on.
all.
It was a
Thank
pleasure to
you.
have the
This was
Yeager
great.
the Yeager group in the building.
Jaeger bombs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are we up to next?
Maybe you should ask them where we can get a hold of them since
Oh,
they're
that's
so
your
amazing
job.
and
Yes.
That's your
dynamic.
job.
Please.
Yes, you can reach us on our cells, 773-606-1966. And then we're all over social media, Yeager Team, at Yeager Team Real Estate, or YeagerTeam.com.
That's
Jaeger
But you
bombs.
see a lot more pictures of our kids than us.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
so
we
cute.
sprinkle it
I love
in.
it. Pleasure to meet you guys.
Yeah, and I also have a blog, Raising Kids in Chicago.
Oh,
So if you ever
see
want to
that?
check it out, it is not real estate based. It's just for navigating.
Maybe
I'll
maybe
make-
Karla
I'll-
should read it.
Yeah.
I'll make
Maybe
sure
Karla needs it.
I'll make sure Nick signs up to it. Thank you so much.
Thank
guys.
you
Joel,
so
It
much.
was a
This is
pleasure to
great.
hang out with you. What are you doing this weekend? Anything fun?
We're going to Colorado before we head out to the Bahamas. So we're just doing a little bit of vacation. You work hard, you play harder. What a good segment. I'm so happy that we had these guests
Thank
on
you for
today.
having us.
It was really
Colorado.
great. As always, you can find me on social media, Cubs Fan Mortgage Man, on Facebook and Instagram. So thank you again, Karla.
Of course. Love having you here.
Thanks for coming, man.
See, I
Thank
love
you.
how
Thank
you have
you.
the conversation about the city versus burbs, but you're in both. So I don't understand.
I just want to pick a fight with whichever side
It's
we're
going
going
to
to
be
go.
annoying, so everyone
Yeah,
can get
you
a
know,
taste of what
there's
it's like
got to
to
be.
me.
Well, the whole thing is about being subjective. So I'll take whatever side. Everyone else wants objective, subjective, whatever. I'll take whatever side everyone wants to jump on. I'll go the opposite way. That's
so
totally fine with me.
annoying.
Because I had
You're
experience living in both, though, and I see the highs and the lows of both of them. I mean, there's things I absolutely love about the city that I hate about the suburbs, and
I'm a city
and
girl.
vice versa. There's
I-
things about the suburbs, like personally, when winter comes, I prefer the suburbs.
Everybody argues that now I'm in the suburbs, but I really like the trees, the birds. Kids get to walk to school, so it's a different lifestyle overall. I do enjoy where you're. Are you gonna have a party at your place? Are we gonna have like a launch
Which place?
party? Your city place.
Oh yeah, yeah. Everybody's invited except for Karla.
Speaking of everybody, we have a new guest. So do you want to go ahead and introduce Graco, your guest today?
Do it,
Well, they're
Grok.
not my guests, so
Do it, they're not?
Yes, they are all our guests.
I'm teasing. Well, I'm going to actually have these guys introduce themselves because they are recognized in our industry. They also are another mortgage lender. And we were talking in the corner, and I was listening in on, they were chiming in about the structure of the 2-unit and their take on making sure that that individual is able to afford that payment on their own without the rent roll. So that was very interesting. But please introduce yourselves, guys, and tell us a little bit about your company.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. My name's Louis Treto with Guarantee Financial. We're based in Berwyn. We do a lot of business in Berwyn, surrounding areas.
Started in Berwyn.
You started in Berwyn?
Back in 1995, Berwyn,
Nice.
right on Cermak Road.
He's got a tattoo that says Berwyn.
Oh, does he?
Berwyn love.
So does Louis.
Yeah, I have one too.
Yeah, he does have
So I brought John. He's the founder of the company I work with, Guaranteed Financial. And small, story about John. He opened up the company when he was 21 years old. So he was one of the
And you're 22
pioneers.
now.
Now he's 22.
I'm 24 and a half.
And a half.
Well,
Okay.
welcome. Yeah, well,
Thank
do
you.
share your story. Tell us a
So-
little bit more about that.
Sure. I started in the mortgage industry as a teenager. Been doing it since then. So I've been in this industry now for probably going on 20 years. So I've seen the ups and downs. I mean, we've been through a lot. Started working like just at a small mortgage company in the city. Decided that it was probably more beneficial for us to open up our own office. And so we did that and been in Berwyn since 2004.
2004, yeah.
So that's a little bit about us. The topic that you guys were talking about, I thought was perfect for us. I have 2 boys, and our family rerouted ourselves from Berwyn to the city. So we kind of did it the opposite way.
And I moved from the city to Berwyn.
Right.
So you guys swap houses or something? Or
We
what?
basically,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, we
Because
swapped
we moved into the
neighborhoods.
same neighborhood.
Yeah, pretty
basically.
much.
Yeah, so I raised our boys in the suburbs, sort of the opposite way. We wanted to raise them in the suburbs. And then once they started getting a little older, we thought, what are we going to do for high school, right? So something that we didn't talk about in terms of public schools, in terms of the city public schools, they're ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the state. So a lot of people don't know about the selective CPS high schools. I mean, they're constantly being ranked number 1, number 2, number 3. And this is above suburban schools. So to your point about like public schools in the city versus the suburbs, a lot of people don't know that we do have great suburb or city high schools. Now, we didn't go that route. We go private school. And so there is something for everyone. We decided that we wanted to bring our boys into the city to get them a little more culture and have maybe some different socioeconomic exposure. And it's worked out great.
Let me speak to that point that you mentioned. I think that's a great point, though, Nick, because we did talk about elementary schools, but we didn't get to that higher school level. Like once you get to high school, right, people start looking into because it's totally where the child gets accepted at
Right.
that point.
Right.
It's all skill-based.
Yeah.
So it's overwhelming for some families to have to look into that because they're spending, again, a lot of money in these individual or these neighborhoods because of the elementary schools. And then once you get to the high school level, it's all application, it's all skill-based. And then otherwise you're spending money at Loyola per se, right, or Notre Dame. So I love the fact that you mentioned that because if you go to some of our surrounding neighborhoods like Park Ridge, we have Maine South, Maine North, and these are good schools, high schools once you get to that level. What high schools do you have?
Someone once said to me, half of the best high schools in Illinois are in Chicago. I said, so what is the other half?
Yeah, I mean,
Don't get me wrong. Being number 1 through 5 means something,
Right.
but it doesn't mean your kid's going to grow up less educated at 6th, 7th, or 8th best high school in the state. Is what I'm trying to get at. I think that
competitive, right? 'Cause
it's
at the end of the
competitive.
day,
You want to be number 1, you're going to go to whatever that school
and it
district
just
might be.
depends what the child wants to study and where they want to go, where they want to go to college eventually. So I think that we do a great job at selecting our schools, but it's good to know that because that's kind of like the conversation that families have when they're looking to buy property and they don't know if they should stay in the city or move to the burbs.
All right, let's stop with the personal. All right. I want to know a little bit more about your company and why you guys are reckoned to be working with you guys. So
Yeah, definitely. We're a company in Berwyn. We've been fully operational. We're on the broker side of the fence. I've done the retail side of the mortgage business, and the broker side is a little bit more attractive to me. We do and master a lot of renovation loans in Berwyn, and that's one of the things that we're doing with a lot of our clients is that pushing them to kind of move outside the boundary of a conventional loan, FHA loan, and exploring a little bit more options for everybody out there. So John does a lot of renovations loans and new construction loans in Berwyn as well.
So, yeah, I have another company that builds in Berwyn, and we've been primarily building in Berwyn. We've built in the city as well. I built my own home in the city. This is how I actually did it. So using tools that are available to every homeowner, not just like someone who owns a mortgage company. I mean, anyone can get a renovation loan, anyone can get a construction loan. And that's another point that I think gets missed a lot in that there are so many programs out there for someone who may want, like we were talking about the renovation, or the multi-unit thing, right? So you can buy a multi-unit, rent it out, and get the rentals. But how can you afford a house that's out of your budget? Well, you can find a house that needs a lot of work. We've all seen the HGTV shows. We've all seen,
They're becoming annoying, to be honest with you.
To be honest, they are, because I think it sort of paints the picture a little too easy for homeowners. They see it on TV and they think they can do it.
Yeah.
We've tried to educate the clients. So one of our specialties is renovation loans and construction. And given that I've done it myself personally, as well as we have a lot of experience in construction because we build in Berwyn as well, we try to educate the client as best we can on how they can do that.
And to those that are watching HGTV, no, you cannot buy $1 million property being a barista and a dog walker. That's what you see on HGTV. It's like, oh, I'm a barista, I'm a dog walker. We're looking at 1.2. Of course you are.
Wait, you just said that you can buy a multi-unit and it basically pays itself.
No, they're buying
because
single-family
there's rental
homes in Orange
property.
County over there. No, it don't matter. HGTV is just a whole
Hey,
nother
but
can you touch a
early
little
on-
bit about those programs? I want to
Yeah.
hear about how you were able to build your home in the city and what that program was like,
Sure.
what the requirements were for the down payment, what type of collateral, if anything, you had to put up.
Yeah.
Touch on that.
So I happen to have bought a property that was already existing. So I went through a renovation loan where you buy a property, tear it down to the foundation, and build it back up. I kind of knew that foundation was going to be an issue. So when we got to the foundation, there is a contingency reserve that's put into these loans purposely so that if there's a surprise that comes up, you can cover that surprise. We knew that the foundation was going to be a surprise. We ended up tearing out the foundation and building just from scratch. And so we were able to do it through the proper channels, through everything was done correct, through a renovation loan. Now, if you're buying just land, you have to buy the land cash or somehow have the land already. But then we would do a construction loan where you're drawing against a escrow account that we set up and then close at the end when you're finished building the property. I see mainly renovation loans. It's a lot easier for people if the property already exists.
Well, that's something different, right? Because we're always hearing people talk about these renovation loans where you're just rehabbing the inside of the property.
Right.
Earlier today, we talked with Joel where he was talking about buying a multi-unit so that you can use some of the income and affords you in a neighborhood that you may not necessarily afford. But now this other option that you're giving, I think it's awesome. And so you're saying that basically someone can buy a property and use a renovation loan to build from scratch or just from foundation? As long as you keep the foundation is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, as long as you keep the foundation. The way it works is we're giving you money based on the projection of what the house is going to be. So you tell us what that house is going to be, what you're going to do to it. You want to add an addition, you want to build a second story or whatever you want to do. And we will project out the value of that new property that you're building. Once we have that value, we will lend you up to 110% of that value. So that means if you're trying to build a property that's going to cost you $400,000, we can actually lend you $440,000 on certain programs. Most of the time, people are doing it because there's leverage. So you're doing it because you can't afford a $700,000 house, but you can afford a $400,000 house, right? And put $200,000 into it. You're all in for $600,000, but that house on the market is $700,000. So I always tell people, it's like you're cutting out the investor. You're cutting out that middleman. And sure, it's going to be a headache. And we just heard the last set of guests, 4-year renovation. I mean, it's
Building
it's
a house
process.
is no joke.
No,
Yeah.
it's
Even
not.
if you have a
Yeah.
builder, it's still no joke.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of
There's a lot of
organizing.
moving pieces to that. So
So as a lender, how are you able to make sure that it stays within a timeline and that, how long, what is the length of time that you're allowed
Sure.
to do this project?
So you have 6 months to do the project. During that 6 months, we're constantly checking in on the project. So our job as a lender doesn't end when it closes. We continue monitoring the project. You're drawing against an escrow. And if you run into a problem, which a lot of projects do, where you're not going to finish it in 6 months, you ask for an extension. And usually we'll allow those extensions for reasonable issues that come up. So you're going to start hearing a lot, I think, already in the industry. We're hearing a lot about renovation loans. This might not have been the first time you've heard about them. We've been doing renovation loans for probably about 12 years. So we've been doing them for a very, very long time. And we're kind of quiet about it because it is a complicated program. And what I tend to see in the market is as soon as something sounds really attractive, people start selling it. It happened during the crash. It happened with subprime loans. If it's easy to do, people start pushing it, and then people get misinformation about it. And so now our job is to educate everyone in our industry and homeowners on how to do them right.
Well, I think it's a good conversation to have. I mean, you want to advocate for these type of products, especially when you're so niche and this is what you focus on. Luis, how many of these deals do you do or you put together on an average?
Well, John, he does a little bit more than I do. I do about three to four a year. But my approach is pretty much the education part of it. So pretty much I lay everything out, let the clients know what they're getting themselves into, the possible headaches that come with a renovation loan. And
so what are those headaches?
Well, those headaches, I've seen contractors take the bid for
the biggest headache is
exactly
contractors.
take a bid just for the sake of taking a bid or whatever the case is, but then they leave the client with a unfinished house. You're talking about the client has no clue with renovation, so we have to then get somebody else in there, even though we closed it, get somebody else in there and make sure that we're still within the budget that we agreed on at the beginning. So the biggest thing is finding a contractor that's going to be able to do the work from beginning to end and is very familiar with the renovation portion of these type of loans.
What is your opinion on those renovation loans, Nick?
It's definitely something that if you're in a mortgage, I mean, I've been doing mortgages for 24 years, and it's something that if you're into them, you shouldn't be doing them if you don't really have experience doing them. I personally don't do them.
Right.
It's just not what I do. I focus on other areas of mortgages, and I think that if you're going to go do one, you should probably interview the loan officer and see how much experience they have at doing these things.
Exactly.
I mean, I know my way around a 1003 and an application, but if you ask me to get into that world, Luis here would kick my butt at doing one for sure. So, I mean, and I'm proud to admit that, it's what it is. It is what it is. So my advice is just make sure you really do your due diligence, not only on your contractor, but also your loan officer, because these loans can get quirky, difficult, and when you have a complicated contractor situation going on, a good loan officer might be at least to help you navigate through it. That's my opinion.
Well, I love that you guys specialize in that, John. But so I always tell people that it's not just about the loan officer as well as it is for the buyer, the end user. Mm-hmm. What is the comfort level? Are they going to be comfortable doing and just managing all this workload? Because typically you buy a property, you move in, and that's it. I mean, most families or people or buyers are very busy these days, and they just want to move in, and that's it. Buy furniture,
Exactly.
and then be done. But this is an ongoing project, and it could
Yeah.
potentially be more than 3 to 6 months, 1
Absolutely.
year, 2 years.
Well, I'm sorry, but to cut you off, but one of the things that I forgot to mention earlier, to me, a lot of the clients that I've done renovation loans for, it's kind of an interview process for them too, because if I feel that the client is not in a position to take on a renovation loan, I don't recommend it. So that's one of doing our due diligence prior to, jumping in.
Yeah, and that goes back on the education component where we dispel some of those myths that you might have seen on TV, that this is a 30-minute show, and in 30 minutes, they built a
new
house.
Yeah.
And it takes time.
Who doesn't?
Especially
Come on, man.
Isn't that the norm, right?
And, and the thing is, you got to remember our city and Illinois in general, we have harsh winters. So people don't put that into account, and they don't consider that you're not going to be laying foundation and doing stuff on the exterior of a home in the winter.
Except if you're Graco and you're doing a flip. And how long did it take you to do that project?
Pretty badass. 84 days.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I'm impressed.
Yeah,
Was that
Full
free?
gut down to the
Brag.
stud, bro. I didn't do the foundation port, but we got it done in 84 days.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
That's actually
Nice
Why
really
don't
guy.
you
good.
give him
Yeah,
credit for
that's
that?
nice.
That's amazing.
I didn't say. I said I'm
He
impressed.
actually
Whatever.
was. He was pretty impressed.
I said I'm impressed. I mean, how do you say I'm impressed other than I'm impressed?
Yeah,
Why don't you give him credit? What
Like
did
you're
I
like, I'm
just say?
impressed.
You had to
You'd
say
be
it in
like,
Spanish.
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, say it
Su
in Spanish.
imprecio.
So how can we get a hold of you guys?
Yeah.
Because we got to wrap up here. Tell us how we can get a hold of you guys.
If you guys are interested or want to know more about our company, call us at 708-749-2200. Anybody from the company will help you out. Again, my name's Louis,
and I'm John Ortega.
and we're at Berwyn, 6231 West Roosevelt.
Cool.
Love
Appreciate
it.
it,
Lots of
guys.
information, great neighborhood coverage. I think today we pretty much talked about every neighborhood in the city of Chicago, including your burbs.
You hit one suburb. I'm like, we're gonna have to do a part 2 to this episode.
You feel left
Nick
out?
demands fairness to the suburbs. We've mentioned Oakbrook and
Hey, talked
Berwyn,
about
and that's it.
And
That's it.
Cicero.
You guys covered every zip code in Chicago, for the love of God. Every area. 606 this, 606 that, 606
You know, Debbie's
this.
still here.
We got 195 schools
you
in
have a
Chicago.
fan.
We got only 2 schools in the suburbs, and they're not very good. I mean, you guys just a bunch of fair
Don't you
weather,
miss Nick? That's why.
biased son of a biscuits. Swear to God. All right, that's it. We got to wrap this bad boy up. It's
I
over.
haven't left
The
this part
party's
in a long
over. It's way
time.
past the 45-minute mark. Everyone wants to go home, and they can't sit here and stare at you all day long. So if you want to watch this show again, go to any one of our social media channels. You can catch us on our Market Overdrive channel on YouTube. Of course, you can go to our website, marketoverdrive.com. It'll be cataloged there as well. Go to Facebook, where you're watching it live probably as we speak. You can watch it there. Look out for some snippets, some of the good stuff, some of the funny stuff, and some of the bad stuff that we'll be delivering over the next few days after the show. And last but not least, we'll be back next Thursday.
We're
Or
off.
not. We're off?
Atta
Oh,
boy.
God, I'm off already. We won't be back next Thursday. We'll be back the following Thursday. Unless my contract gets reissued, I'll be signing off till God knows when.
You're fired.
Take care.
Thank you for watching another episode of Market Overdrive. If you like the information, please make sure to double S, share, and subscribe. And also like, right?
Yeah, make sure you follow us on marketoverdrive.com and all of our social media platforms.
Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We'll see you soon.